First question is about the save, OK, and cancel buttons on the order settings window. So first, let's get our BlackBird turned on. So you can see I've already got BlackBird on my charts here from previous workshops. So all I need to do is just enable it, just enable my strategy. I can just click OK and start it off there. Okay, so in the order settings window here, we have save, OK, and cancel. So the save, let me just say all three of these buttons will close the interface. So once you're done, setting something up here, so, let's just, we set something up, I don't know, just you have some settings here that you want to set up. Actually, I'm not going to do scheduling because I won't set this up for an auto trader. Yeah, just keep in mind that the scheduling and the money management, really, all those features work when you're using BlackBird as an auto trailer, right? So if you have signals set up here, then those features take effect here. So I might as well just turn them off because I don't have any signals ready to go here. So I'll just set up a simple discretionary order set here. And so if I click cancel, well, that's just going to cancel everything that I had just done in this window from when I had opened it. All right, so it's going to cancel everything during this open session of the order settings window. It just cancels everything, right? If I hit cancel, there you go, it just cancels everything. So let me just kind of set things up again here, like so. Now if I click OK, well, that's going to accept everything, all the changes, but it's just going to hold it in memory, right? So BlackBird will remember all of your settings, but only in memory. So nothing has been saved to the file yet. So if I open it back up, right, there's my order there, and say I change my entry order to a limit, change it to a limit entry now, and let's say no profit target. I'll just do a runner, and I can click OK. And so it remembered all the changes I just made there. All right. So let's say if I add a profit target back in there, and then I do something and I decide no, I don't want that. If I click cancel, then it'll just cancel what I just did. Right. So it undid what I just did. It undid that adding the profit target, but and it just kind of reverted back to the state of when I first opened the order settings window. And then, all right, so the last button here is the save button. So save will save all the settings to a file and then close the window. All right, so now so I don't have a file name set up yet, so I'll just call it my test or something like that, and then save. So now the order settings have been saved to a file, and of course it closed the window there. So there you go, there's the changes there. So kind of what I could do is I could set up my orders, kind of set up a baseline here, and then I can go in and I can kind of tweak stuff a little bit, and if I don't want to save that to the file, then I could just click OK, and then BlackBird holds that in memory, but it didn't modify the file, right? It didn't save that stop loss settings back to the file. Right, so there you go. It's still stop loss is at 15 ticks, but the file was not modified. So if I want, I could go back and, well, let's just do something a little more exotic here. So let's just make another order set. And say I'm doing a lot of just kind of experimenting here, and so you can see it still has my file name up here, and eventually we're going to get this modified so it has a little asterisk to tell you that you're working something that's been modified from what's saved to the file. It's kind of standard practice among softwares to put a little asterisk on there if you've edited something but you haven't saved your edits back to the file. So we'll get that up there eventually on the file name here. Right. So, but for now, right, I've made some changes. I can click OK, and I can test those changes out. But those changes haven't been saved to the file yet. Right. And so, so I can kind of play around, and then if I want to revert back to the original file settings, I can just click open and open my file again, and then it restores me back to kind of my baseline there. Right. So, but then if I wanted to, so say I come across something that I do like, say I do want something like this, I'll just go and make some quick edits. So, say if I do like this kind of setting, and I want this to be my baseline, then I could click save, and then that'll save it back to the file as well. Right. So also, we're continuing to add to the documentation on everything. So if we go to the documentation for BlackBird, and so if we go to the order settings page here, so the order settings is just a simple description of simple outline of what the order settings window is. So you can see, there you go, there's the commit changes buttons, and if we scroll down, there's a description of what those buttons do, right? So there's the save, and then the OK button, and the cancel button. So if you ever want to refer back to the documentation, there you go. You can just go to the page. So, and that's just recently been added there. Okay. All right, so that's the first question there. It's a pretty simple one. All right. So Will would like to see how can we can you show me how to use a manual entry with a bar reversal exit? All right. Yep. Okay. We can do that. And let's see. Let me change my chart to something. Yeah, before I get going, let's change my data feed connection here. So that way I have some control over the data. And we'll switch to a 5 range chart like so, and all right, I'm just going to remove BlackBird off the chart here. Now I've got a 5 range chart up. Something to note here, even though BlackBird was removed off of the chart, NinjaTrader still holds on to those strategies. So if NinjaTrader removes a strategy from the chart, that strategy is still going to show up in your strategies tab here. So just be aware of that. There's lots of different ways that NinjaTrader will disassociate a strategy with your chart here. So if I turn BlackBird back on, you can see it's running, but it's no longer running on a chart. It's just running in the background. So just be aware of that. So I'm just going to remove that, and I'll just have to add BlackBird back to my chart like that. And let's turn it on. Get it up and running again. All right, there we go. And let's see. Let me just do one more thing. I'm going to remove BloodHound off the chart there. All right, so let's get our order settings up. So, all right, so let's just set up a simple order set. So, I guess all right, I'll just leave a stop loss. So this manual order will just be taken out with a stop loss or that reversal. So, all right, so in order to do a bar reversal, you'll have to use BloodHound, or you have to have your own custom indicator written to detect bar reversals. So let's use BloodHound here, and I do have a simple BloodHound file that has a bar reversal signal in it. So my little test file here has all kinds of stuff in it, and so I'm going to use the price inflection here. There you go. I've got a price inflection solver, right? And it's just set to the closing price. So that will tell us when the bar reverses. All right, click OK. And I don't actually have an entry, right? I'm only using BloodHound as that bar reversal signal to exit the trade. So we'll turn off the entries, turn on the exit signal, and select, select the BloodHound logic template that has my exit signals in here. So so there's the price reversal. There's that logic template. So you can see all of the logic templates within that BloodHound file. All right, just a bunch of different odd stuff in there just for testing. All right, so that's it. So we got our exit signal set up through BloodHound, and we're done. If you could maybe you could find a custom indicator to do that, to to mark bar reversals. So if you do, you just load up your custom indicator, and we're not using entries, but we are using exits. So again, just enable your exit signal, right, and turn off your entry signal, and then just set the set these settings up according to what how that indicator would work. So all right, so let's see, we got something set up here, and let's click OK, and let's test this out. All right, so we'll go long. Stretch the chart out there. Let's go long. All right, I'll move price up. Hey, go up, price. It's going the wrong way. Don't want to exit quite yet. All right, so we'll just move price up a little bit, and you can see that stop loss is trailing, although that's not really, the stop loss isn't a part of the question. And as soon as this bar closes, I'll move price down so that we can get a bar reversal. Okay, there's a new bar. Let me pull price down. And, all right, let's see, that didn't work as expected. Just a moment here. And I'm going to refresh the chart to get BloodHound on here. Okay, so there we go. So we got BloodHound on here now, right? Since BlackBird is using BloodHound, so you'll have to refresh your chart to get the BloodHound indicator to show up on the chart. So this is BloodHound that's being put on the chart through BlackBird. You notice how it says BlackBird right there? So it says BlackBird. So, all right. And let me select. There we go. All right, so we got our BloodHound exit signals on the chart. Let me just make sure I get everything set up correctly. And yes, that all looks correct. Yeah, let me just try this one more time here. So let's go short this time. All right, I'll move price up. And let's see. I may not actually get, oh yeah, there we go. There's an inflection. And, all right, it's not closing. So let's try this a different way here. Instead of doing that, let's see. Let's modify our stop loss. Yeah, we'll modify the stop loss here. So I'm going to do a custom stop loss, and I'm going to add a trailing rule. So I'll give this a name. All right, so I'm just going to add the first trailing rules just to trail by 15 ticks. So that way I still have the same trailing action. All right, so it's just simply kind of demonstrating, how you can. So if you are using a stop loss, this will just demonstrate, how that you can still put your trailing in there. And then, now next we're going to add another rule to exit on the bar reversal. So, let's see. Okay, so bar reversal exit. So, and actually, let me finish. I didn't quite finish setting up my trailing, so I need to turn the repeat on to indefinitely. And if I want this to be a real-time trailing, then I'll set it to trail every one tick in direction like that. So that way the stop loss will trail, every one tick, tick by tick. Okay, so now back to my bar reversal exit. What I need is a trigger. So I need to go to the trigger, and we're going to use a BloodHound signal for that trigger. And let's load our template. So you'll see that the template's already loaded there. So I'm just going to select it. Now I need to select the logic template. So we're going to use price inflection. And now we need to figure the signal trigger mode. So let's see, signal in opposite direction. Actually, that's what we want. So, right, if you'll notice that, let's go back to the chart here. Right, so for short, we're getting a long signal from that BloodHound logic. Right, we're getting a long. So this long is the opposite of the trade direction, right? So the trade direction was short, but the signal was long, so it's opposite of, right, opposite of the direction. So let's go back into our trigger, right? So signal in the opposite direction. So for short, then a long signal would be the opposite direction. So we didn't have to change the mode, just leave it to its default. All right, and then that's it. So since we're moving a stop loss, if we move our stop loss to the last price, then that'll get us stopped out, which will close the position. Right, that'll close the position. So we don't have to change the action, just leave it to move to the last price, and we're done. So really, the bar reversal exit rule, all we needed to do is just set up our BloodHound logic. Just select your BloodHound file, and then select the logic template, and we're done. And that was that. So, all right, let's click OK. Actually, how about this time? Let's see. This time I'll save it. All right, so I guess I'll call this bar reversal exit. And there we go. Okay, that looks like a good name. All right, so I'll save this BloodHound or BlackBird file. And so let's go long. So we got price going up here. And once this bar closes, okay, now I'll pull price down. And hopefully you saw that the stop loss was pulled up to the price, which then closed the trade out. So let's try, and we'll do this again. We'll go short. All right, so there we are. We're short, and a bar build here. Okay, and I'll reverse this now. That happens pretty quickly, but we can see the stop loss got pulled down in. So, and that closed the trade out there. So, all right. So let me just kind of clean this file up here. So let's just take out the signals there. And that's really all we needed. So just set our stop loss up. And then the key was really adding this one trailing rule here, this bar reverse exit trailing rule here. All right, so Jeff's got some confusion about the scheduling feature and the cancel trade feature with it here. So let's go over that. All right, so let's open up our BlackBird. So in the scheduling, right, so we can turn on a scheduler. And let me just select something here. So I'll just use the U.S. equities RTH, right? So that's what most futures also trade in the same hours, right? So this U.S. equities RTH is basically, that's just the exchange hours when the exchanges are open, and pretty much all futures trade at those exact same times and end at those times. But of course, always check specifically with your broker. But so I'll just pull this up just as an example. All right, so we got the scheduler. Now, in the last update, we added this new feature here, force trades to exit. So So if you don't want to force your trades to exit and just let them play out, just turn it off. So what the scheduling will do now is trades can only be placed during these hours, right? During the scheduled hours. Orders can be placed, but the orders will not be closed out, not by BlackBird, right? So this just puts on a restriction of entering a new trade, and this will not close out any trades. So this new feature here is a way to close the trades out automatically, based on when your schedule ends, right? So this schedule ends at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So if I use this option, then basically my trades will be flattened. If I have any open positions, they'll be flattened 30 seconds before 4 p.m. right? So as another example, let's say I wanted my trades to be flattened 2 minutes after 4 o'clock, right? So my schedule goes until 4 o'clock. So if I wanted to allow my trades to kind of play out for another 2 minutes after the market's closed, a lot of brokers will actually let you kind of keep your trades open for a few minutes after the market closes. But of course, you should definitely check with your broker to see if they allow that. So if your broker does allow that, then what you can do is put negative 120 seconds, so that's 2 minutes after the market has closed. So, all right. Or of course you could go in here quite commonly. So what I hear a lot is people want to prevent new trades from going in like 5 minutes before the market closes or 10 minutes before the market closes. So let me just do 10 minutes here. All right, so now I have to do all of these here. So let's just say, Monday through Friday, I've set my scheduler to end at 3:50. So that means no new trades will be placed after 3:50. But then if I have my forced trades to exit, so that would allow, that would force the trades to close at 3:52. So if I wanted to, let's see, that negative 300, that's 5 minutes. So let's say I wanted to make sure that my trades closed at 4 o'clock, so I put negative 600 seconds in there, so that's 10 minutes. All right, 600 seconds. Oh my gosh. All right, try and say that 5 times fast. 600 seconds is 10 minutes. So, with my scheduler set to end at 3:50, then my trades would be closed at 4 p.m. All right, so I hope that kind of clarifies things for you, Jeff, on that. All right, so the question is, how would you set BlackBird up to behave like Raven? Right. So let me close this up here. Let's go into the strategies real quick and just take a quick look at Raven. Right. So Raven comes with BlackBird. All right. So that's just a free strategy that we just include that free with BloodHound. But Raven is a very simple kind of backtesting tool. It's not designed to backtest any fancy order settings. It's just to get you some baseline stats on your BloodHound system, just to let you know is your BloodHound entry signals kind of working out fundamentally, all right? So Raven will get you some basic fundamental feedback, back testing feedback for your BloodHound system here. So let's just kind of cover some of the basics that Raven has. So Raven, has an entry logic and it has an exit logic. So you could set up, so you load your BloodHound file, and you can set an entry logic to enter the trade. And if you have an exit logic, a BloodHound exit logic, of course you could set that up as well. And then really the only other key feature here is, do you want Raven to submit a market order or a limit order? So by default, Raven will use a market order. So the use limit order, if that's turned off, then you're going to submit a market order. So if we turn this on, then it'll submit a limit order. Right? And then limit order is very basic. It's just the limit order is so many ticks off of the closing price of the bar. Very basics. And then the next, the profit target and stop loss are just simply fixed unit prices. So you could put in a number of ticks, or if you want, you could use percent or an ATR. So most people, when they set up, for example, when most people set up a NinjaTrader ATM, those are all based off of ticks. So most people are just using ticks with Raven. So ticks, and you can see that there's only one order set. So Raven only has one OCO order set. So that's another clear difference between Raven and BlackBird. So, and then Raven also has a very simplistic trailing stop loss. So say, for example, if you have a 15 tick stop loss, you turn this on, then your stop loss is just going to be a fixed 15 tick trailing stop. All right, there's no break even or nothing. It's just 15. The stop loss is just going to trail price by 15 ticks. So very basic. So okay, so those, all right, so there you go. So there's kind of the fundamentals of Raven. So we'll kind of cover these various key features here, right? So we got the first one is setting up your BloodHound logic in Raven. The next one is, are you going to use a market order or limit order? And then the third key setting is setting up your profit target and stop loss, setting up your OCO order set. So we'll cover those three key areas in BlackBird. All right, so let's remove Raven and we'll close that out. All right, let's get BlackBird open. And clear everything out. Okay, so item number one is setting up your BloodHound signals. So you definitely would select BloodHound signal, and just like as in Raven, you would load your BloodHound file, and then you would choose your entry signal. So all right, I'll just use a moving average crossover as my entry signal, and let's say if I did have an exit signal that I'm using with Raven, then I'll just turn that on here, and I'll just use price inflection as my exit signal there. Okay, so that's right. The first step in Raven is just setting up your BloodHound signals. So there we go. That's that part. Pretty simple. Now the second part, right, is setting up your order, your entry order. So are you going to submit a market with Raven, or are you submitting a limit? So markets, obviously pretty simple. Market order is a market order. There's really no settings for a market order. So now if you're setting up a limit order, then you have some offset options with your limit order, right? So in Raven, you can offset your limit entry off of the closing price. So let's go to the options tab here. So you'll notice that in BlackBird, the initial placement is off of the close price, which is exactly what Raven uses. Raven uses the closing price of the bar as your reference point for your limit order, right? So the closing price is your reference point. Now, the next thing to do is to select an offset, right? So in Raven, you can select an offset, right? And that's all you get. So if you want your limit order to mimic Raven, then all you need to do is just change this offset value here if you're doing that. So say like you want a 2 tick better fill, then you can put -2 in there for a long, right? And that'll place your limit order 2 ticks below the closing price of the previous bar, or of the closed bar. So so this long tick and short tick offset is the only setting that you get in Raven. So don't change anything up here on the top, right? Just leave the top price alone, leave the top settings alone, and only change your offset value here if that's what you're doing in Raven. So, all right. So that sets up our entry, and so now setting up your profit and stop loss. So we can see. So really, those are the two main features that people use in Raven. BlackBird doesn't actually have a percentage offset, and that's because we just found that really people just they were just not using that feature there. So we didn't include it with BlackBird. So, but people are using ticks or ATRs. So if you're using ticks with Raven, simply just select your ticks and then go in and adjust the number of ticks that you want. Right? So if you want a 25 tick profit target, if that's what you're using in Raven, there you go. Just change that and you're done. So there's your profit target. If you are using an ATR profit target, or if you're using ATR measurements within Raven, then of course to select your ATR, and then go down here in the long factor, so you can see that right, your indicator is already selected to your ATR with a 20 period, and then select your ATR offset. So you're using a 2 ATR, or using a 3 ATR in Raven, whatever you're using in Raven as your ATR profit target. So also make sure that you match up your ATR period. So in BlackBird, right, it's set to an ATR of 20 period. ATR 20 period in BlackBird. And let's just quickly check what is Raven set to. And Raven's set to a 50 period. So there you go. If you're still using that 50 period ATR within Raven, then we'll have to make that change in BlackBird there. So let's remove that. Let's get BlackBird back open. So again, if you're using Raven's default ATR settings, we'll have to go in here and change the ATR period to 50, like so. Right, and then of course select your ATR multiplier there. All right, and so if you're using an ATR in Raven, and you have to make sure that you're using an ATR as your stop loss as well. So you got to make sure that your profit target is an ATR and your stop loss is set to an ATR if you're using ATRs in Raven. Right. So of course, if you're using ticks with Raven, then make sure that your profit target and your stop loss are both set to ticks. All right, like so. And if you're using, so the last one is the trailing, the stop loss trailing in Raven. So if you are using the stop loss trailing within Raven, then you'll just want to go down here to trailing and select your 10 tick or your ATR trailing. And so this trailing behaves exactly like Raven. And of course, just set up however many ticks of a stop loss that you've got. And just to take a quick peek here under the trailing actions, you can see the mode is set to just standard trailing, a fixed offset. So that's what Raven uses, just a fixed offset trailing there. So, okay, so there you go. Those are the three key features of Raven covered in BlackBird, right? So set your, again, set your BloodHound template up, and then select whether you're using a market order, or use a market order or limit order, and then decide, are you using a profit target in ticks or ATRs, and then set both your profit target and stop loss to both ticks or both to ATRs, and you'll get the same results there, same backtest results as Raven. Yeah, I think that covers it there. Let's see, I don't see any questions coming in. So let me see if I can find another question to cover. All right, so we got a question about scaling in. Actually, no, that scaling in is different. So just to let you guys know, probably our second update will have the ability to scale in using the order sets. So that we are working on that. So like your first order set would just go in with your first entry signal. So, say you're using a BloodHound signals, your first order set goes in with the first signal, and then you can actually set up your second OCO set to actually scale as a scale in position. So there's more options here. There's some extra options here to determine if your second order set is a secondary scaling in order. So we're working on that. So that's scaling in question. I'm just gonna leave until that option's out. For now, if you want to scale in, really the way to do that is you can use either a stop or a limit to scale in. So let me just use a limit order, for example, as a way to scale in. So let me just set up just set up some profits and stop losses here. So, all right, we'll click. Oh, let me get rid of my BloodHound signal. There we go. All right, let's see. Let me just go long. All right, I went long. You can see that, right, my limit order is sitting down here. And so I can just leave my limit order down here, and if I want to scale in on a retrace, then I could just move my limit order up to wherever I want to go. But for now, basically what you do is you just submit a limit or a stop entry order. Just submit that out there, right? And then you just have to manually move it into place, right? So if you kind of wanted to discretionarily scale in, then you could just move your order manually to scale yourself in there. I'll do something a little fancier. So I'll demonstrate both ways to scale in here. So one scale in will be a limit, the other one would be a stop entry. And so let's close that. And let's go short. And oh, oops, yeah, sorry about that. Hold on. I didn't set up my stop entry properly. Since it's a stop entry, that should be a positive value there. There we go. I'll set that up as a positive 10 ticks. There we go. All right. Now let's go short. There we go. So we can see, let's get my profit target out of the way. Let's get the stop loss out of the way. All right, so there's my two scale in, orders. And of course I can just manually move them and scale in wherever I want to. All right. So, if I didn't want to use a limit to scale in, I can just cancel that and just use my stop to scale in. So let's say if price comes down and breaks this low here, that's where I want to scale in. I can do that. All right. And also, let me just kind of point something else out here. I'm going to turn on the order monitor panel. And you'll notice that my auto trailing is turned off. So I need to turn those on. Turn all those on. The reason why they were turned off was because I was moving my orders around. So let me just kind of take this opportunity to remind you that I don't want to get stopped out quite, or I don't want to get filled quite yet. But yeah, so I'll just show you. So if you move an order like so, you'll notice that the trailing is disabled automatically. So any stop loss trailing will be disabled automatically if you manually move an order. That's going to disable your any trailing that you have set up. And so if you need to move an order, then and you want the trailing to still function, you need to go back and turn the trailing back on like that. So let's say I want to move my profit target way down here. And I'll get price to move down again. I'll get price to move down a little bit. And we'll see that, right, my auto trailing has been turned off because I moved my profit targets, right? If you move any order, that's going to disable the trailing. So let me just get price down here a little further. And then I'll turn the trailing back on. And boy, price price does not want to come down. There we go. All right. So now if I turn on the trailing for A, now A should start pulling down. I think maybe A, I didn't turn the trailing on for A. So let me turn the trailing on for C. And just wait for price to come down here. And oh, I don't even have trailing. Sorry about that. All right. Yeah, so we won't actually see the stop loss as trailing because I didn't actually set up a trailing stop loss. But but you can see here that if I did have trailing enabled, that just simply by moving an order, so I moved my profit target A, and so we can see here for OCO group A, the auto trailing is turned off. And for C it's still on because I haven't moved I haven't moved an order for C yet. But say if I move my stop loss further away for OCO set C, now we can see that my auto trailing was turned off. Or if I move my profit target for C, then the auto trailing also gets turned off. So if I move any order for C, right, that's going to turn off the trailing for order set C. All right, here's an opportunity for me to turn on all these trailing rules, and so now we'll see. So now you can see the stop losses are trailing here. And if I move C, so you can see stop loss C is no longer trailing because I moved the profit target for order set C, but A is trailing. So I need to go back here, turn on the trailing for C, and there you go, bingo. You can see C just moved right up there. Let's see here, yeah, I haven't covered the layout button here in a while. So let me just mention this. All right, so the layout button here, basically it saves how you have the BlackBird panels open and where you have them. So let's say I want to save this layout with the order monitor panel open here like this. Right, by default the order monitor is actually closed, but I could save a layout with that. So let's just do something like this. All right, so I'll just do an abbreviation here. I can save that. And you can see that's saving a .bbl for a BlackBird Layout file. Right, that's saving a BlackBird Layout file, like so. And then there's a quick pull-down menu here. So say I want to go back to my default. So if I want, I could save it like a default layout setting here. And if I click on that, all right, it's going to change my panels around, and you can see my default actually opens up the performance panel as well. So we can see the performance metrics for this BlackBird, and it also has my order monitor showing as well. Right, so that's kind of my default layout that I guess I saved that a couple of workshops ago. Right, so I've got two different layouts saved. If I wanted to, I can reset them back to the default to, BlackBird's built-in defaults. If I hit reset, there you go. That just resets everything back to stock settings. And then I could go and select my order monitor layout there, just like that. Question: in the BlackBird interface, some windows have an X, or some items have an X in them, others don't. Does X mean cancel these changes or simply close? Let's see here. So, all right, let's open this up. So I guess what Jeff is asking about is in the OCO orders, right? There's X's here. Also in the trade signals, right? If I load up a BloodHound or a indicator signal, right, you can see a red X there. So those are the only X's I can think of, and you can see all of them have X's, right? They all have X's. So I'm not sure what you're referring to for the inconsistency, but yeah, hitting one of the X's just simply gets rid of that order. So the black X gets rid of just that one component. So the black X, we can see, got rid of the profit target and stop loss. If I hit the red X, it gets rid of the whole order set. So if I hit the red X, so if I cancel my entry order, well, of course, you can't have a profit target, profit and stop loss without an entry order. So hitting a red X cancels the whole set. Right, so now you can see order set A is completely deleted. So if I hit the red X, that's going to delete order set C. Right, completely gone. And that again, so if you hit the red X, right, that's going to get rid of the whole signal. So if I hit that red X, that gets rid of that whole entry signal component there, like so. So that's what the X's are. And if I cancel this, I can restore it back. There we go. All right, guys, with that, I'll say, have a good rest of the day and have a great weekend if I don't see you tomorrow. All right, bye, guys.